The church bells echoed through the peaceful morning air, their soft chime blending with the gentle murmur of guests filling the pews. Sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows, painting the marble floor in colors of red and gold. Daniel adjusted his tie nervously as he stood at the altar, his heart racing faster than the music that played softly in the background. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of his life, his wedding day. He smiled as he looked toward the entrance, where his soon-to-be wife, Olivia, would appear in just a few moments. His friends whispered excitedly behind him, and the priest gave him a reassuring nod. Among the rows of smiling faces, an 8-year-old boy sat quietly, dressed neatly in a small navy blue suit. Ethan, Daniel's son, didn't share the joy that filled the room. His eyes wandered nervously between his father and the church doors. Everyone around him was laughing, taking pictures, whispering about how beautiful the bride was going to look. But Ethan's hands wouldn't stop shaking. He clutched a small folded paper in his pocket, something he wished he hadn't seen, something he didn't fully understand but knew was wrong. When the music changed, everyone stood and turned to face the doors. Olivia appeared, radiant in her white gown, her smile flawless, her eyes shining under the light. She walked slowly down the aisle, every step measured and perfect. Daniel's face softened as she approached. He had waited for years to feel this kind of happiness again after losing his wife, Claire. Finally, he thought, he could start over. But Ethan didn't stand. He just sat there, eyes wide, heart heavy, whispering under his breath, "Dad doesn't know." As the ceremony began, the priest spoke about love, trust, and second chances. Daniel and Olivia held hands, exchanging warm glances, while Ethan looked around the church, his small face pale. Then his gaze stopped, at the back of the church, where a tall man in a dark coat stood silently watching. Ethan froze. He had seen that man before, outside their house 2 days ago, handing Olivia an envelope. She had looked around nervously before taking it. Ethan had followed her, seen her open it, and read the words inside. It wasn't a love letter, it was something much darker. And now, sitting in that church, surrounded by laughter and light, Ethan realized he might be the only one who could stop this wedding before it was too late. Daniel reached for the wedding ring, his hands trembling slightly with emotion. The church was silent except for the faint hum of the organ. Just as the priest began to speak the final vows, a small, shaky voice broke through the stillness. "Dad, stop." Everyone turned at once. The sound of that tiny voice cut sharper than any music. Ethan stood in the middle of the aisle, tears streaming down his cheeks, his chest heaving as he tried to breathe. His small hands were clenched into fists, and his voice trembled as he shouted again, "You can't marry her." The whispers spread like fire. People gasped, others leaned forward to see what was happening. Daniel froze, staring at his son in disbelief. "Ethan, what are you doing?" he asked, his voice soft but filled with confusion. Ethan shook his head, his lips trembling. "She's lying, Dad. She's not who she says she is." Olivia's smile vanished instantly, replaced by panic. "Ethan, sweetheart, you must be tired. Come here, darling," she said quickly, forcing a smile that looked more like a mask. But Ethan didn't move. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the folded paper he had been holding since morning. "I saw this," he said in a choked voice. "She met someone 2 days ago. He gave her money. I saw it, Dad. I read it." The guests were whispering loudly now, phones raised, some even recording. Daniel's face drained of color as he took the paper from his son. The priest stood frozen, unsure what to do. The only sound was the rustle of the paper as Daniel unfolded it with shaking hands. The silence deepened when Daniel's eyes scanned the words. It was a legal-looking document, a financial agreement with Olivia's name on it. It promised a man named Mark a large sum of money if Olivia married Daniel and gained access to his company's shares. Daniel's hand dropped, the letter slipping from his fingers onto the church floor. Gasps erupted around him. Olivia took a desperate step forward, her voice trembling, It's not what it looks like. Please, Daniel, I can explain. Her eyes glistened with tears, but Daniel couldn't even look at her. How could you? He whispered, his voice breaking. Ethan clung to his father's arm, crying uncontrollably. Olivia's face crumbled as she fell to her knees, her makeup streaking. It started as a deal, she sobbed, but I really fell in love with you. Daniel looked at her one last time, his heart shattered. The priest quietly closed his book, and the wedding that was meant to begin a new life ended in stunned silence. The church was empty now, except for the faint scent of flowers and the soft echo of what had just happened. Daniel sat on the stone steps outside, his head bowed, his hands trembling. The ring that was supposed to mark a new beginning lay forgotten beside him. Ethan sat quietly next to his father, his small hand resting on Daniel's arm. The boy's eyes were red, but there was a calmness in his face, the kind that comes after telling a painful truth. I didn't mean to ruin it, Dad, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Daniel turned to him slowly, his eyes tired but soft. You didn't ruin anything, Ethan, he said. You saved me. He pulled his son close, holding him tightly as if realizing he could have lost something much more than money or trust. He could have lost the bond that truly mattered. Inside the church, Olivia stood alone. Her white gown, once perfect, was now wrinkled and stained with tears. The guests were gone, the music silenced, and the candles flickered low. She stared at the letter on the floor, the same one that had destroyed everything. For a long moment, she couldn't move. Then she slowly picked it up, clutching it to her chest. She knew she had no one to blame but herself. Outside, through the stained glass, she saw Daniel and Ethan walking away hand in hand. Her lips trembled. She whispered to herself, I really did love you. But love built on lies couldn't survive, and she knew it. Weeks passed before Daniel smiled again. The pain took time to fade, but every evening, when he came home from work, Ethan was there, waiting, laughing, asking about his day. They began cooking together, watching movies, rebuilding the quiet happiness that had been missing for years. On weekends, they visited Claire's grave, placing flowers and talking to her as if she was still listening. You'd be proud of him, Daniel said softly one afternoon, his voice full of warmth. Ethan knelt beside him, tracing his mother's name with his finger. I just didn't want you to be sad again, he said. Daniel's heart swelled. He realized the truth. His son wasn't just a reminder of the past. He was the reason Daniel had a future. As they walked away from the grave, sunlight broke through the clouds, wrapping them in a golden glow. Life wasn't perfect, but it was honest, and that was more than enough.